to go into James' badass mode now. James finally stepped forward, forming a sword in his hand and staring down at it in serious thought.
An angel like you can never understand the desires I hold.
That is because your desires are misplaced. You know deep in your heart that you desire to rule over this world. Your demonic blood craves the power.
I watched James gaze deep into the steel of his blade, locking eyes with himself. Still, he continued to speak.
It is true that some part of me wishes to rule this world. Some darker, unfeeling shadow of the past that was raised to live and become the ultimate lord of this plane.
As James gripped the handle of his sword tightly, he shifted his gaze to Diana's body.
But my heart knows where it belongs. With the human who loves me as I love her!
Aww, my heart.
Forward deep within, I can't go through it alone, and I won't leave you on your own. I stand before you now and promise you I am not afraid. I will fight and guide the way. We will rise again to glory then, soar into the sky. If you stop and see, then you just might believe.
What's up guys, the name's Runner Dragneil and welcome back to Seduce Me 2, the Demon War. So last we left off, angels got us. I got a bad ending, but I fixed it, and now we're gonna go into the war. So, I had to finish James out because something came up. My dad is home tomorrow, so I can't record anything. So, unfortunately, I will not be starting Sam's route tomorrow. So I just wanted to finish James' route so you guys can see. Hopefully when I get back from vacation, hopefully I can start Sam's route and I can record. So yeah, change of plans. Won't be recording Sam this week as much as I want to. So with that, let us go.
If anything trickles into the side route, you'll be able to handle it. However, there is something I must ask of you.
What is it?
If you are indeed attacked, you need to defend your fiancé the entire way there. Do not let him use his energy.
Absolutely not.
When you get to the castle, I will be fighting one-on-one with the Demon Lord. If something should happen to me, then I need you to take over. She is not ready to fight him, and you need to be at full strength to finish him off.
She'll be fine. She has a way to defend herself.
Aw yeah, using rabbits, animal guardian training. Whew! I stared, listening and reaffirming the order. I couldn't lie, I was nervous. However, I was determined enough to see this through. I looked over at my fiancé with a confident smile. I got this. Don't worry. Despite the worried look in his eyes, he nodded and held my hand, trusting me in my decision to agree with Diana's command. Diana rolled her shoulders and looked at the map draped over the war table between us all. Her gaze pierced into the parchment as the aura around her body pulsated in anger.
I will fly ahead and meet the Demon Lord head-on. No matter what happens, I will not allow that monster to live.
The pure determination and anger in her voice practically sent a shiver down my spine. She was set on seeing this through to the end, and I was sure that she was willing to even die if it meant taking the Demon Lord with her. The remaining incubi and their wives were asked to stay behind the army and guard the main base, where Rabbit and Faye were stationed. They needed as many eyes as possible in the back of the battle, so the four couples were perfect to keep things in check. As they agreed, the meeting ended and the mental preparation had begun. The idea of the upcoming battle scared me, sending waves of fear and worry up and down my body in response to the thought.
Nervous?
I would be lying if I said I wasn't. James smiled and held my hand tightly before bringing it up and kissing over it.
No matter what happens, we will end this, and you will see the human world again. You have my word.
I listened to him speak before nodding, taking in a deep breath. Everything would be okay. We would be fine. I had to believe in myself and get us to the castle when the time was right.
Beletes! Et hoc liberati esturei tramcun tuis omnibus conversiris. Sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem. Nocte, lavabir mur, arcem, hostium sanguine.
What is she saying?
She said that she stands with them and will help them gain their freedom from their enemy. Tonight, the Demon Lord's castle will be bathed in blood.
See, this is a good and absolutely perfect translation. I can always expect James to do things, to help me with things. Really?
I don't think she means it literally, but she's riling up the soldiers for war, as she should.
Yep, what James
Come,
said.
we must hurry.
Understanding the need for urgency, I nodded and rushed forward with the rest of the incubi towards the slope and down the mountainside.
Everything is in order. Sergeant Diana's guard are at the front lines, while Shadow is with his legion to the west.
What of our route?
We've done what we can to keep your way clear. We'll try to make sure the battle won't break through the path.
I nodded, feeling the need to rush nip at my heels, pushing me forward. My fiancé seemed to agree, grabbing my hand and walking at my pace alongside me. However, as we finally arrived at the forest line, Faye and Rabbit stopped, looking back at us.
Straight through here. The sound of the war will always be on your right, so do not get lost.
You'll be fine, though. Just follow the tree line.
In sync, my fiancé and I nodded in acknowledgement before turning to see the other brothers and their wives. So, this is it.
Princess, brother, we'll see you in the end.
Gotcha, Eric. You're still my prince in my dreams, even if I'm pursuing James right now. Watching you, Irene! Nah, JK, I'm good with her.
We have faith in you. You'll make it there, and we'll return to the human world soon.
Kick his dead body a couple times for me, alright? Right in the head.
Sure thing, Sam. Whew.
We'll be right here rooting for you and watching your back, okay?
We'll finish this and rush in as soon as we can, alright?
Make sure you kick some serious ass. Show that old goat what he gets for messing with you.
We'll win this. We know we can.
Yes.
You can do this. We'll see you soon, okay?
I smiled, despite the nerves running through my body. I held onto my fiancé's hand and gave it a hard squeeze before receiving one back in kind. We'll finish this, then we'll go home. The group nodded before I slowly turned and looked into the tree line, took a breath and rushed forward. Matching my speed, my love followed, weaving through the trees behind me to not lose sight of me. The journey was surprisingly uneventful. The sound of war boomed beside us outside of the tree line, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume. I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. As a line of incoming imps came into view, I glared and stopped, placing a hand over my chest and preparing to summon my guardian. Waves of energy pulsed around me before I jutted my hand out, forcing the familiar lavender and white mist to shoot out from my hand and slam itself onto the ground ahead of me. As it cleared, it formed my animal guardian, who let out a large battle roar and made the trees around us tremble from the sheer force of his voice. Okay. I could hear my incubus jump back at the sound. Surprised to see my summoning and staring in awe at it at the same time.
Whoa! What?
You made me surprised. The smart person of the group is surprised to see that. However, I didn't care at the moment. All I could focus on were the imps that I had successfully stopped and intimidated with my animal. Move out of my way! I jutted my hand forward and pointing at the imps that were stunned from my animal's cry and commanded my animal forward. Go! On my command, the lion rushed forward, charging straight at one of the imps ahead of it and pouncing on it. As it landed, its It swiped its large paw at the imp, ripping its chest open. On my command, the wolf rushed forward, beelining towards one of the imps ahead of it, and pouncing upon it. As it landed, it snapped its teeth around the neck of the imp, shaking him like a rag doll and ripping its throat open. Bye! I rushed forward, causing my incubus to follow behind me, as my animal continued to claw and bite through the imps in our path. Uncaring if they were attacking or frozen still from fear, the more imps that fell, the more reinforcements became shell-shocked. Some managed to drive their weapons into my animal, causing me to flinch and reel back a bit from the pain. But I pressed forward, knowing that I would be alright in the end. My animal pushed forward as well, animalistic in its carnage. The remaining imps began to quake and step back in fear, most likely never seeing a human use magic and slowly decimate their number. I didn't seem to mind as they became open targets for my animal to strike down as we rushed onward towards the castle. My incubus, despite probably being surprised at my animal's carnage, followed as I continued forward, commanding my animal through every imp that came in our way. I had lost count of how many crossed us, but I didn't care. All I cared about was getting to the castle. By the time we reached the end of the forest, there was a slew of dead bodies behind us. I stood at the tree line, panting and feeling waves of lost energy echo through my body as my animal began to slowly fade away. I watched my animal stare at me, its eyes asking if it had done well. I smiled and nodded slightly before it bowed its head and disappeared from sight, unable to maintain its form any longer without my energy to fuel it. That was all I could do before my energy was expanded and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. I began to fall forward, exhausted. My fiancé, however, quickly rushed forward and caught me in his arms.
Whoa! Are you okay?
Huh? I looked up to see James, staring down at me with a deeply concerned gaze. We were safe for the moment, so I merely smiled up at him with a nod. I'm fine. I promise to protect you, like you protect me. James let out a small laugh, kissing my forehead and hugging me to him.
That you did. I'm so proud to call you mine.
Aw, James! I hugged him back, feeling relief that we had finally arrived at the castle and were about to rush inside. As we slowly pulled away, James lifted me up and helped me to my feet.
Will you be all right?
I nodded, shaking off the exhaustion from my mind. I was ready to end this. I looked up at the castle gates and felt a rush of determination run through me. Let's go finish this. With that, James and I rushed forward into the castle. The final battle had begun. Oh shit. The ringing sound of clashing swords greeted me and James as we sprinted into the castle and towards the main hall. James placed a hand in front of me as I spotted the battle waging at the foot of the throne dais. Diana and the Demon Lord slammed their swords against each other over and over in violent repetition, with Diana level to her tall opponent in flight. Just from the force behind their swings, you would think that their swords would break and bend. The sound of their steel, however, could not cover the snarls that erupted from each of them as they pressed against the clash between them.
It's over, you brute bastard! We'll see about that!
With a heavy grunt, the Demon Lord pushed his sword forward with a pulse of red energy, causing Diana to fly back and slam into a pillar with a painful thud. Oh, my friend logged in, so please ignore that.
Ah!
Diana crumbled to the ground, her wings instinctively folded in against her back from the impact. However, it only took a second for her to recover and look up with a rejuvenated glare. Vaulting off of the ground, Diana flew at the Demon Lord once more and slammed her sword into his, a large burst of purple flames erupting from between their weapons.
I will send you to hell where you belong!
James and I watched in silence as Diana and the Demon Lord danced their deadly duel, not wanting to get in the way of either of their rage. After all, James was merely a backup and Diana seemed fine so far. For some reason, however, as I stared at Diana, something about her hits looked almost effortless, like something was guiding her sword to land each strike. Was she that skilled in combat? After a flurry of deadlocks, Diana finally managed to swing her sword at an angle, slicing the back of the Demon Lord's hand and making him drop his weapon.
You!
The Demon Lord quickly stepped back and reared his other hand back, forming a large red orb in his hand. However, as soon as he thrust it forward, it began to dissolve and dissipate in the air, vanishing completely before it reached Diana's body.
What?
Diana stared in shock at the occurrence, taking in that his attack didn't hit her, before she slowly grew a smirk on her face and a golden glow over her blood-red irises.
Looks like you're all out of energy.
With another angry growl, the Demon Lord repeated his action, only to stare in disbelief as it evaporated into the air. It was large enough when in his hand, yet it vanished all too quickly. Something was wrong. Diana didn't seem to care. She lifted her hand back behind her and formed a large purple orb in her palm before shooting it forward. The orb slammed into the Demon Lord's chest and pushed him back against the pillar harshly, forming large cracks in the stone at the impact.
It's over!
With her battle cry, Diana gripped onto her saber with both hands and flew forward, charging to skewer the Demon Lord through the chest. As she began to fly forward, I gasped at the sight of white feathers slowly painting over Diana's demonic wings. What? No! 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 Angels were here. Wait! Diana wasn't listening. Her eyes became completely glossed over in a gold color as a strange white glow began to emanate from her form like a holy light and guided her forward towards her intended victim. Within a mere blink, Diana had run her saber through the Demon Lord's chest, piercing through his heart and impaling him against the pillar. James and I could do nothing but stare in shock at what Diana had done and what was happening to the succubus in question. Her body let off almost an ethereal white glow as she snarled into the Demon Lord's face.
May Satan take you and tear you apart in the pits of hell.
That sounded like something an angel would say. My body shuddered in fear at the sound of her voice. While she naturally had some sort of demonic resonance as she spoke, something else was laced into her voice, giving it almost a celestial lift and tone. The Demon Lord's eyes glazed over and soon lost their light as he ever so slowly went limp over the blade embedded within him, blood slowly dripping from his mouth and onto Diana's forearms. Diana, however, released the handle of her blade and glided back, shaking her arms to rid them of the Demon Lord's blood. Despite what I normally expected from Diana, the succubus didn't seem to care that her mortal enemy had fallen at last. She didn't even seem to care that her wings had become angelic and covered in beautiful white feathers. If it wasn't for her tainted demon skin and horns, I would imagine Diana at that moment to be confused as the angels I imagined from the human world. The reality of the situation, however, was apparent. Something was wrong with Diana.
It is done. It is over.
So, James didn't step in this time. Wow. I looked to James, seeing his cautious but deadly glare burn itself onto Diana's form as she looked up at him. Eyes still glazed over in a gold glow.
It isn't truly over, is it?
Diana stared at the pair of us for a moment before lowering herself onto her feet on the floor and letting her new angelic wings fold against her back patiently. With an almost sickeningly sweet smile, Diana lifted her hand towards James and beckoned to him.
You are correct. You must take your throne, Reistrau.
What? No. My anger flared at the sound of his true name escaping her lips, but my soul began to quiver in fear. Diana was being controlled by angels, and now she seemed to be an instrument for James's destiny. James, however, remained at my side, glaring hard at Diana, still with the hand across my body in protection.
You do not have permission to use my name with such familiarity.
And why do you say that? I am the queen of the demon world now, and you are my betrothed.
Diana ran her hands through her hair and over her horns, dragging them down her neck and over each curve on her upper body seductively. This was definitely not Diana.
My mind, body, and soul are completely yours, as is the domination of this world. I share these pleasures and power with you, with the purest love from the bottom of my heart, as your true, universally intended bride.
James reached his hand back and took my hand, knowing that her words were digging into my mind with edges of betrayal and annoyance. I knew James wouldn't accept her, but I also knew that this was not Diana, so who knew what the angel controlling her would do next? Diana tilted her head to the side, slowly lowering herself onto her knees and stretching her arms by her sides, burying herself to us.
Unless you desire me to be your slave, I will happily give you the throne and eternally serve you until the end of time.
Enough! Release her and reveal yourself, Seraph!
I gripped James's hand, staring wide-eyed at Diana, as she simply chuckled and guided her hands together, pressing her palms between her breasts and leaning back to stare at the high marble ceiling.
This child of Lilith is offering herself to you, demon. Yet you refuse to take it.
You know my answer.
It is a foolish answer. This demoness can become a vessel of power for you, the mother of your lineage. What more can you desire that the human can hope to provide?
Stop it! This time, I had to interject. This was wrong and underhanded. Whatever spell Diana was under gripped her tightly enough to become some sort of twisted submissive to James, and no part of me appreciated it. This angel was some sort of sick and twisted being that needed to be stopped somehow. Ooh! We're about to go into James' badass mode now! James finally stepped forward, forming a sword in his hand and staring down at it in serious thought.
An angel like you can never understand the desires I hold.
That is because your desires are misplaced. You know deep in your heart that you desire to rule over this world. Your demonic blood craves the power.
I watched James gaze deep into the steel of his blade, locking eyes with himself. Still, he continued to speak.
It is true that some part of me wishes to rule this world. Some darker, unfeeling shadow of the past that was raised to live and become the ultimate lord of this plane.
As James gripped the handle of his sword tightly, he shifted his gaze to Diana's body.
But my heart knows where it belongs. With the human who loves me as I love her!
Aww! My heart fluttered in my chest at James's words, feeling every ounce of passion and determination embedded with each sound. Diana, however, let out a dark laugh.
Love, how fleeting. Your defiance comes from such a weak emotion.
As Diana finally straightened back up, I stepped back from the sight of her eyes. Instead of black pupils, her golden eyes held two dark crosses burning within her lost irises. The smirk on her face intensified almost like a Cheshire cat's sickening grin.
Allow me to show you a power greater than love!
With a hard flap of her wings, Diana jutted forward, forming another saber in her hand, and arching it across James. Her target countered in reply, clashing his sword to hers with a heavy clang. I instantly jumped back, away from the fight, as James and Diana began to clash swords again and again. James's face showed his pure concentration as Diana cackled in both an insane glee and obsessive desire.
Fight however you like! You cannot escape your destiny!
I will, and you will not stop me!
The speed of their clashes increased. The rapid sounds of steel beating steel crashed through the air like a wave of violent drums. They were equally matched, and neither seemed to be close to giving in. How long would this fight go for? I knew Diana was probably exhausted from the fight, but the angel was working through her, so there was a chance that her exhaustion wouldn't matter. Then again, James had not lifted a finger yet in this war, so he had energy to spare. The entire situation became full of confusion and concern as James and Diana continued to duel without hesitation or need for air. As James took a heavy swing towards Diana, the succubus leapt back and sank gracefully on her feet, using her wings to ease her descent and stance while she licked her lips.
Love is a fleeting game. Those who expect it to bring happiness will only experience sorrow in the end.
You're wrong! I was tired of this angel trying to get in between me and James. Enough was enough. I stepped forward, trying desperately to find more energy within me to fight alongside James, but spoke out regardless. You don't know anything about love.
I know more than you ever will, human. I've lived for eons serving heaven, and have watched your kind rant and rave all about love and its existence.
Diana lifted her hand to her chest, grasping at it over where her heart was, and almost laughed at me and my words.
You humans use love for the most meaningless of things. I love him, I love her, I love this, I love that. You claim love to be a powerful emotion, yet you can't even give it the power it supposedly deserves, as you use it for everything. I've watched that word fall on deaf ears. I've seen lives destroyed, despite love guiding them forward. The mere word has become a throwaway amalgam of letters, used to express minor joy for things that will decay and die in the end.
I mean, he kinda does have a point, but whatever. Love is stronger than you think. It doesn't matter what you think. Love is stronger than you think. The power of love conquers all, as Kay would say. I knew deep down that the emotion of love was stronger than this angel could have ever imagined. This wasn't something you could debate against when I had experienced it firsthand with the man it was trying to take away. Diana laughed and shook her head, scoffing at my explanation before stretching her arms out to the side.
Love is weak! I have claimed the body of a succubus who is full of true love, and not even her love could stop me!
Because you took advantage of her. I stared wide-eyed at Diana. She was in love? Yeah, of course she was! Jesus Christ. Even more so, she had a pure and true love? But if love was the factor behind control, then something was off. I shook my head and glared once more at Diana, burying my gaze into her eyes at the angel who was controlling her movements. You controlling her has nothing to do with love. You're taking advantage of her being weak from the fight with the Demon Lord. Finally, Diana's face melted into a glare as she bared her teeth at me and growled.
You know nothing! Less than nothing! Filthy, unclean human! You open your mouth and spout nonsense and forget your place in the universe!
Diana's saber began to glow an unfriendly white color as Diana's hand began to quake holding it. Was Diana fighting back, or was the angel's anger shaking her limbs with rage? I wasn't able to tell.
I will erase you!
A hard flap to Diana's wings made Diana fly forward towards me, sword held high to rip me in two. However, her blade was met with James's as he rushed up and guarded me.
You!
James pressed back against Diana's saber, his body glowing a dark color in response to her ever-growing aura.
Your battle is with me, Angel. I will not let you touch her.
With a heavy snarl, Diana pressed herself against the deadlock, leaning towards James and practically frothing at the mouth.
I will make you yield!
Unaffected by her scream, James summoned a burst of yellow energy forward, knocking Diana back towards the throne dais. Diana flipped back and floated in the air gracefully, shaking her head before sneering at James. The demons sprang at each other once more, slamming their swords together in hopes to push the other away or strike their opponent down. Purple and gold clashed through the room, the speed of their duel growing exponentially with each hit and parry. Watching Diana, however, I could tell that exhaustion was hitting her hard physically. Her hits became wild and thrown by adrenaline instead of with purpose and intent to kill. The angel wouldn't be able to hold on for long. James was putting up a good fight despite this, easily blocking and dodging her attacks before pummeling a barrage of his own, laced with gold energy that burst between their swords at each hit. As soon as an opening became available once again, James gripped onto Diana's wrist and twisted it back, making her release her saber with a painful scream and causing him to drop his own sword.
Enough of this!
Using the momentum of his attack, James spun Diana around so her arm was almost dislocated behind her back and slammed his feet into the back of her knees, causing her to buckle forward and land with two painful thuds. James, however, pushed Diana farther down and slammed her body onto the ground, trapping her arm against her back with a foot and gripping onto Diana's large wings with both hands. I gasped. He wasn't going to rip them off of her, right? With a concentrated glare on the back of Diana's head, his fists tightened around Diana's feathery wings and suddenly sent a wave of golden flames through them. The fire stopped at Diana's back, only consuming the wings in a golden red flame. Diana's scream echoed through the room, bouncing off of the floor and walls in a frenzy as she could do nothing but feel the flames engulf her wings. The feathers that painted over them began to burn and dissolve into ash, falling around her. Soon enough, the pain became unbearable enough to force Diana to make her wings vanish back into her skin, where two large burn marks signed themselves.
I'm sorry.
Not giving Diana a single ounce of mercy, James stuck his foot beneath her body and flipped her over, causing her back to arch in pain from the impact of her burns on the marble. Smoke snaked out from her back and she gasped loudly. As Diana opened her mouth and let out her breath, James quickly grasped onto her neck, squeezing tightly and causing the succubus beneath him to choke. James! Neither demon would hear me as Diana grabbed onto James's wrist and began to claw at them, desperate to make him let go of her. Her eyes began to flicker from gold to their original clear white and red colors, as Diana could do nothing but spasm from lack of air. I gotta stop him. I don't want Diana to die. I needed to stop him before he killed her. The angel wasn't worth her death. I rushed forward and grabbed onto James's arm, making him look up at me as I knelt down beside him. James, stop it! You'll kill Diana! James stared at me, taking in what I had said with the same surprised look before looking down at the succubus beneath him and glaring hard. Was he going to kill her anyway?
Come out and fight me.
With a burst of energy surging through James's hands, Diana arched back, a spray of frothy saliva and blood erupting from her mouth towards the far wall. James's grip had loosened around her neck, but Diana's body continued to spasm from James's attack. Diana's eyes rolled into the back of her head, finally fading from gold to white, as she gasped for air and her body relaxed at last. As Diana's body finally went limp and settled onto the marble, a large white aura of smoke wisped out of her chest and shot itself at the throne dais, settling on the steps and slowly growing taller in place. The white smoke finally formed into a familiar cloaked being who was arched forward with his veiny hands tensed out beside him. Something about the angel, however, seemed different than before, as if he had somehow gained energy from being within Diana.
You filthy cur! You continue to try and defy your destiny when it is useless!
James stood and glared hard at the angel, forming his sword once again in his hand and pointing it towards his new opponent. His body began to glow and the room began to brighten at his golden aura.
I have no such destiny to remain in this world. My life is bound to the one I love, not to an empty chair gained through blood.
You will have no choice in the matter!
Like two bullets, James and the angel rushed at each other and collided with James's sword against the angel's bare hands. I expected James's blade to tear through the angel's flesh, but the steel pressed against the angel's hands like it was grazing stone. The angel gripped James's blade and slowly began to crush it beneath his hand, causing the magic surrounding it to falter and fade. James and I stared wide-eyed as the angel was able to rip the broken piece of the sword off and toss it to the side like it was plastic. Determined still, James shot his energy through his sword and reformed the blade, going once again for another attack, only to be blocked by the angel's forearms. Upon impact, the steel of the blade shattered like glass, falling to the ground.
I am no mere servant of heaven, demon. I am the keeper of destiny, the scribe of fate. You cannot defeat me no matter what spells you conjure.
Upon his final words, the angel pressed his hands forward and slammed them against James's chest, forcing him to fly back and slam into the far wall. James! I instantly began to rush towards him, but found myself being lifted off of the ground by the back of my neck and pulled away from James towards the angel. Gah!
No!
I grabbed at the back of my neck, feeling the angel's hand grip it tightly and keep my body afloat somehow. His hand felt indeed like stone and concrete, grazing against my skin roughly and almost tearing at the flesh as I struggled. Let me go!
I should have forced you to choose from the beginning, demon. This human will not see reason to let you go, but I know that you will see reason in the offer I will graciously give you now.
The angel held out my body, dangling me in the air like a doll, as I flailed and clawed at the angel's arm. My nails merely scratched against his stone skin as I felt my energy slowly deplete even further than it was in my spirit.
Accept your fate, demon, and I will bring her back to the human world unharmed. Refuse, and I will release her to the gates of hell for the devil spawn to ravish.
What? No. 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 As he spoke of James's potential refusal, a large wave of heat burst out beneath my feet, causing me to look down and scream at the sight on the ground. Beneath my body was a large open circle with red flames flaring out of it. Between the flames, I could barely make out the sight of hundreds of hands reaching up to try and stretch themselves through the hole, above them and towards me. Each hand, burned in red, sent waves of remembrance down my body as an image of Malix appeared in my head. Ah! My fear only spurred me to flail harder in the hold I was in, uncaring of the friction his hand was causing my skin. I could feel blood gather and dribble from the back of my neck, flesh tearing open from my attempts. James stared up at me, quaking from the fear of the situation. We were far away from him, where he couldn't reach me even if he sprinted as I dropped. I was left to James's decision. However, something in James's eyes changed. Change of music, yo! I can't believe I said yo. Please slap me. A dark gold painted over his eyes as his body began to float in the air.
Let her go!
As you wish!
Oh, Jesus Christ, no! I A gasp managed to rush into my body as the angel's hand on my neck vanished without a trace. My body began to fall into the open pit below me, a wave of intense heat reaming at my legs before I felt a strong pair of arms wrap around me and pull me forward. What? I looked up to see James gripping me tightly. Yes! Flying back away from the angel with me encased in his tight hold. As we reached the doorway of the main hall, James landed and set me down, keeping his intense glare on the angel by the throne. As the angel made their way towards us, I could feel the air become colder with each step he took.
You cannot smite me, demon. It is useless to try.
If I cannot kill you, then I will send you to a place you can never escape from.
On James's words, a large set of purple ethereal tendrils snaked around the angel's hands and neck, tugging him back roughly. Are you serious? James and I looked back to see Diana. Diana! When did you have this power? When are you turning into Eric? Please do not. Risen from our conscious state and glaring daggers into the back of the angel's cloak as her hand connected her to the tendrils around her target. It was mildly frightening to see her eyes completely coated in gold, just like James's eyes, as she snarled at her now captured victim.
How dare you defile me!
James, in retaliation, formed a large wall between himself and the angel, pushing him back in time with Diana's tendril pulls. Each time the angel dispelled one of the tendrils on his body, James pushed forward and Diana formed another tendril in its place. It became a team effort, forcing the angel back to balance his feet over the edge of the hell pit he opened. However, despite each rough tug and push James and Diana gave him, the angel continued to balance himself. With a burst of white light, the angel completely dissolved the tendrils and magic wall, jutting upwards and floating high in the air, tense and growling. The two demons, however, wouldn't let him hang around for long. Simultaneously, James and Diana pounced off of the ground and flew into the air at the angel, Diana on her summoned but damaged wings, and James with his new powers. Diana summoned her saber, and James formed his sword, clashing them against the angel's body. The blades didn't break, but simply pounded against the cloak the angel wore as if they were hitting armor. The angel became frazzled as he began to defend himself against two opponents, each not giving him an ounce of mercy in their attacks. It was almost dizzying to see Diana and James fly around their target, taking shots at him at ridiculous speeds. Each hit resulted with a loud clang of steel against stone that bounced around the room in an endless but random cycle. Watching Diana and James encircle the angel with attacks was like watching gold and purple fireworks going off against the moon. Suddenly, Diana's saber was launched out of her hands, causing Diana to float back a bit in shock while James attacked the angel head-on. As the angel knocked back James's attack, Diana swooped up behind the angel and entangled her arms around his and locked her legs around his cloak, while pressing herself between his wings.
What?
Max!
At her cry, the purple and black lightning began to spatter and shake around the angel and Diana, freezing them in the air but electrocuting both.
James! No!
The incubus didn't falter as he gathered energy into his blade, making it gleam in an almost ethereal and godlike glow.
No! It's over!
With a large shout, James shot himself forward and impaled the sword into the angel's body, successfully ramming it through his body and skewering both the angel and Diana. Gold and purple lightning wrapped around the angel, both from Diana's spell and James's blade, causing the wings on his back to burn away into bones, then to ash. The angel's hands slowly began to darken to an ashy black color from the electrocution. James ripped his blade out from his two victims as Diana finally pushed herself away from the angel, leaving him to float in the air for a moment, frozen from the pain. As the angel began to fall, he let out a deathly scream before falling into the hell pit below. Bye-bye, angel! The angel's body vanished into the hell pit before a large burst of red and orange flame burst from its opening. The chaotic screams of devils erupted from the pit as the flames began to die out and vanish. Music ended at the right time. Wow. Soon enough, the pit slowly closed itself, having been fed a proper body to seal it away. I collapsed onto my knees, feeling the drain of the entire situation hit me like a ferocious wave. It was over. It was over at last. But for how long? This entire situation became a chaotic mess. James forced the angel of fate into a pit of hell. Did this mean that James was free? What about the angel? Too many questions rang in my head, but stopped as James landed beside me and knelt down to me, lifting my chin and making me look up at him. He looked worn out, panting for air from the experience, but still had a kind smile. It was so satisfying, feeling James with me. I had barely noticed the black scar on his chest vanish from his skin as I became lost in his eyes in relief.
It's over now.
I could only nod, feeling the slow growth of elation trickle into my chest as I looked up at James. He was alive, we were still together, and the angel was gone. If it wasn't over, I was sure that the other angels would have come at us. I wrapped my arms around James, relieved that everything was over and we were at peace at last. Diana, however, let out a pained gasp from where she had fallen, gripping the open wound on her stomach and panting. James and I looked over in surprise as Diana began coughing out blood and calling out,
"Settle!"
On her command, a burst of white light emerged in front of her body before revealing her half-angel guard, looking around him at the new surroundings and locking his sights down at his fallen mistress.
Isaiah!
Quickly, Sarah dropped to his knees and placed his hand over her wound while he wrapped an arm around her shoulders and back. Diana winced and continued to pant for air, gritting her teeth.
What happened? Who did? Shut up and heal me.
Sarah nodded in quick obedience before muttering to himself and closing his eyes. White energy floated through his hands and into Diana's wound. To my astonishment, the wound slowly began to close and zip together, like it was never there. As Diana let out a sigh, she closed her eyes and relaxed into Sarah's arm, laying her head against his upper arm. Sarah let out a breath of relief as well, moving his hand beneath Diana's knees and lifting her up bridal style. Hey! James and I stood as soon as Sarah did, facing him as he turned to us and glared hard at James. I gripped onto James's hand, stepping forward to be between the boys as Sarah began to walk towards us.
What happened?
We fought an angel. It has been properly disposed of.
The air in the room once again chilled as Sarah kept a stare on my husband, a faint white glow surrounding his body. It faded, however, at his mistress's voice.
Settle.
Sarah looked down to see Diana looking up at him and bringing her hand up to his cheek. The tension in his eyes faded at the sight and feel of her actions, making me release the fearful breath I was holding in. Without another word, against my incubus, Sarah turned and walked around me and James. As he reached the door, however, he turned his head towards us.
It would seem that your destiny has been broken. Well done.
How do you know this?
Sarah didn't speak again before leaving us alone. James and I watched him leave before relaxing into each other's arms, with me laying my head on James's shoulder. I could only remember Sarah's voice as he vanished into the dark of the castle hall. If Sarah was right, then James had enough power to break his stone destiny, and him sending the angel packing only confirmed it. Thank God. It's over.
Yes, it is.
James and I held each other tightly, taking in the situation. The war was over. The angel hunt for James was apparently over. We were safe now, and we could go home. All we could do now was let out a sigh and cherish the silence that followed. We would go home soon. Woo! The war is over!
Well, you did it! Congratulations! You've made it to the end of your story. I have to say, I am very surprised at how it turned out.
Yeah, so am I, but I'm glad to see you in the end.
Nevertheless, I'm glad things worked out in the end, whether it was for the better or otherwise. I mean, not only did James defeat his father, the dreaded demon lord, but both of you took out a band of angels! Seriously! That's wild! But I guess it was for the best, or else they would have kept trying to hunt you down and make James the king of the demon world. Angels. So persistent.
Yeah, I know, right?
Anyways, you've been through a lot, so why don't we skip to...
Yeah, I'm gonna skip all this, because it's basically the same thing.
Huh? After you, the Sarah, Diana, the other Diana, and I believe that is everything that happened after... Well, except for your story, anyway. James and you returned home and prepared once again for your marriage. Everything was taken care of before he found you, so no one knew the wiser. Huh? How do I know? Well, I have my ways. Maybe you should check it out.
Alright then. The wedding was perfect. The reception, even more so. Everything that happened to me before the wedding was completely washed away by the nerves that rushed through me and the joy that I felt when I finally said, I do. As the wedding bells chimed and the cheers rang through the air as James and I finally kissed, I could almost see my future laid out before me, and it was gorgeous. I could go on and on about the wedding and the honeymoon, but honestly, after the war, I was more concerned of living my life afterwards. Our lives escalated to new heights after we officially became husband and wife. James helped the Anderson Toy Company skyrocket through the business world, now an official Anderson heir. I stood behind him, aiding him in every way possible. As for me, I began to go through my own success in life, dedicating myself to becoming exactly what I wanted to be. After all, my husband was the CEO. Nothing was barred from me. If I put the same amount of work as I did in the demon world, then I was going to be okay. However, there was never a day that went by that I didn't think about what was happening in the Abyssal Plains. It was a heavy chapter of my life, one that tested the love between me and James, la-di-da. The memory of angels that chased us after us would always run shivers down my spine, reminding me that, at any moment, an angel could lash out at us once more. Still, I was confident that we would get through it and stay together no matter what came our way. Sorry if I'm speed reading, because I kind of want to wrap this up, too. You know, demon, devil, angel, it didn't matter to us. We were unstoppable together. The faint memory of my own power slightly tingled through me every time I grew confident, eagerly reminding me that I had strength of my own. I would never let anyone come between me and James, ever again. The slow settling of it all rumbled in my mind as I laid in bed, holding James close to me. I was so happy to see him every morning, even more so now to occasionally glimpse his wedding ring resting on his ring finger. So beautiful! Beautiful. I couldn't help myself from brushing my fingers over his gorgeous black locks, staring at his closed eyes. How did I ever deserve you? It seemed so unreal, holding him close to me. How lucky was I to have a man who not only was strong, but also intelligent and charming, all in one package. The demon part of him almost became an extra dab of cream on the top. Whenever I looked at him, my heart would overflow in joy. This was indeed a true love, and I was the luckiest person in the universe. I softly leaned in and kissed his forehead, needing to show my love even as he slept. He protected me with his arms around me, and I would show him my gratitude for as long as we were together. My kiss, however, slowly made James begin to stir in my arms. I gasped a bit before giggling, seeing his eyes slowly flutter open. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to wake you! Whoops!" The sight of his tired, whiskey-colored eyes made my heart do giddy flips, knowing that they would always look at me out of love. "Good morning."
Good morning.
James nuzzled into the pillow beneath his head, taking a moment to wake up at last before smiling up at me. I smiled back, sliding my body closer to James and nuzzling his chest. "How did you sleep?"
I slept well, but waking up to your smile is so much better.
A red blush rushed across my face before I buried my face in James's shoulder, making him laugh and hug me against his chest. The content hum that rumbled in his chest made me smile despite the embarrassment on my cheeks. I was going to experience this every morning, waking in his arms and feeling complete within them. James gently kissed over my head before squeezing around my waist, making me look up at him and become lost in his loving gaze.
What about you?
I let a cheesy grin paint across my face before pecking his chin with my lips lightly, making him stare wide-eyed at me in surprised amusement. "Sleep was good, but I'd rather be awake with you." James chuckled and kissed my forehead, hugging me tightly to him.
Well then, what shall we do today?
"Huh? Don't you have work?" James shook his head and caressed my cheek lovingly. I unconsciously nuzzled his palm, loving the warmth radiating from it, as I stared at James, patiently listening.
I managed to grab a couple days off.
Hallelujah! Yes! Yes! How many days?
How does a whole week sound?
Fuck yeah! A whole week with bass drow! Even though he's not really my bass drow, because I'm #Ubetus all the way. Anyway, I grinned and squeezed him slightly in a hug of my own, making him laugh a bit and kiss my nose sweetly. "You're all mine for a week?"
For a whole week. No, I'm all yours regardless of that.
True. Ha. To hear him claim that made my heart skip a beat. No one else to lay claim to him but me, and I was thrilled at that. I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat as he cradled my head to him and rested his cheek against my hair.
So, any ideas? We could go into Chicago and watch a couple of shows, or we could even fly out somewhere if you want.
We can do anything?
Anything you want.
Oh! I thought for a moment, trying to decide what to do. There were so many things available to us, but as I felt myself melt into James's embrace, I closed my eyes and rubbed my head against his chest. How about we lay here for a bit and decide later? With a nod and a laugh, James gave me a loving squeeze and shifted to make himself comfy, allowing me to use his chest as my pillow. While the idea of adventure was enticing, we could save it for when we were ready to really get out of bed.
As my beautiful wife wishes.
Yes! I love you, James. James lifted my chin slightly and stared deep into my eyes with an adoring gaze and smile, making every part of me practically swoon at the sight.
I love you too. More than anyone in the world. I will always be here beside you every morning and every night for as long as we live.
Yay! I believed every word. I let his words embed themselves into my heart, and I would remember them forever. As James finally kissed me, locking lips with mine, he sealed his words. His destiny was to be with me, and I to be with him. No angel could change that. No demon could break that. And that was my perfect happily ever after. And my destiny is with you. Woo! Finish James' route. Whoop-de-doo. I'm so glad that I was able to finish his route in time. I'm so sorry that there has been a change in plans. As soon as I heard that my dad was staying home tomorrow, I quickly rushed to record this so that I don't leave you guys hanging and I could finish the James route for you guys. Also, I'm really sorry if throughout the whole way the content is blurry, because I don't know what's up with this Xbox recording app or whatever the fuck it is. But I had to record this. I had to in order to finish it before my brother came home or before any of my parents came home. Sadly, I'm afraid Sam's route will have to wait until after my vacation. I'm really, really sorry to say that I will be on what is the word? I don't even remember the word. Oh, I remember. I'm so sorry. I'll be on hiatus for Sam's route. So, I know that my brother is going to be home with me, but if I can't, I will try and squeeze in to record Sam's route while taking care of my brother. So with that, that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed James's route. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of my videos, then click subscribe. With that, see you guys in the next video. Bye!